Carol got the letter after her husband Stephen was away without an explanation for about a week. She could not believe it at first. Divorce? She hadn't seen this coming at all. Stephen had not even given a good reason in his letter, but in the following week, she was able to find this out for herself. And she was planning on using this against him to make Stephen regret everything. Carol was still dead nervous when she walked into the divorce court that morning. It had been all she could think about when she received Stephen's letter a week ago. But luckily she was prepared now and was not going to let him get away with this. Stephen probably thought that Carol had no idea why he wanted to divorce her, and he liked it this way. He felt like it gave him the advantage in pushing this thing through. But then Carol took the stand and directed her words right at a very surprised Stephen. Before we continue, make sure to subscribe, hit the like button, and click the notification bell for more amazing stories. His face went red, as could be, and he was not even able to stutter a good response. All he could feel was regret for his actions. And now he was going to have to pay for it. But why did Stephen want a divorce from Carol? Why did he want to keep the reason a secret? And what was Carol's brilliant reply to Stephen? Stephen had left his wife, Carol, with many questions unanswered when he went away 1 week ago. Carol got surprised when he announced that one evening he had to leave all of a sudden, also adding that he would not be back for a while. What does that mean? A while? It had been a week now, and Carol had no idea where her husband was. First, Carol tried to stop him, but Stephen seemed determined and was gone within minutes. For a short amount of time, she admitted for herself that it had to be for a good reason, but a few days passed and she'd got worried sick. Carol tried many times to reach his phone, but without any luck. None of his friends could give her any clue either. It took Carol some more days to be able to reflect on their marriage. Admittedly, their relation had recently been anything but perfect, but still, she had always felt like they could work through everything together if they would just try a little harder. It had always gone well, hasn't it? Carol and Stephen were both on the introvert side of the spectrum, and therefore not the types that fight a lot. The problem they'd been having was actually more the lack of fighting, or the lack of communication in general. For some reason, over the last few months, the couple had been started to talk less and less to each other. As far as Carol knew, it was not her that was making no effort anymore. Stephen was lacking the attention he clearly had so much for her before, while Carol still felt as if she was trying her very best. But who knows? Maybe he felt this the other way around. In any case, it was not difficult to pinpoint where this had started. Carol had gone with a group of her best friends on a 2-week vacation a couple of months ago. It was very difficult to find 2 weeks straight in which all the girls were available, so Carol had started planning this trip far ahead. At the last minute, one friend had to cancel. Still, Stephen had been quite supportive of her going on this trip. They would always spend their vacant weeks together, especially when a trip to somewhere new was planned. Carol feared that by heading off with her friends like that, Stephen would hate her for going. And when the 2 weeks of vacation had passed, she thought that so may have been right in this assessment. Carol returned, and instantly she felt like the Stephen she knew was gone, and her boyfriend was not the same anymore. He was so much more distant now, Carol thought, and he would often just stay away at unknown places without her having any idea of where he went. And when she tried to talk with him about this, it was without success. Months went by, and the changed behavior continued, building up to the point where he was now away for a week already. He'd never been gone for this long, and Carol was seriously having doubts about whether she would ever see her boyfriend returning. At least, until she got a letter in the mail the next day. From the looks of the envelope, Carol had no idea that this letter was in any way related to Stephen. It did not come from him directly. Rather, it was what appeared to be a message from the local government. When opening it, she expected that the paper was possibly related to outstanding bills or something in this regard. When she sat down in the living room to open it and read the first couple of sentences, she felt her whole world collapse in upon itself. Carol was personally summoned to court to finalize her divorce from Stephen. Her first reaction was that she might have misread it, but reading it a second and a third time made her realize that it was actually there. Carol could not believe it at first. She got another government letter from the drawer next to her and concluded that everything looked the same and as official as possible. There she sat for a while, eventually realizing that it was best to call Stephen immediately. Of course, he again did not answer. Luckily, the number of his lawyer was listed in the letter as well. Carl dialed the number and got someone on the phone in an instant. Unfortunately, he was not able to give her much information about the reason for the divorce without the presence of Stephen. What he did tell Carol was that this had been in the works for a couple months already and was in no way a spur-of-the-moment decision. The man continued by explaining that Carol's best chance of getting some more answers to her questions was to come to the court hearing in a week's time. Here, she would be able to ask Stephen everything himself. She wanted to know now if it would be necessary for her to arrange a lawyer for this court date. According to Stephen's lawyer, it was always wise to arrange someone with legal experience. Yet in this case, it was not fully necessary. He did tell Carol that his client, Stephen, only wanted the divorce done, and he was for the rest willing to meet most standard demands, even if they were in Carol's favor. The lawyer ended with this statement in the hope that it would calm down Carol a bit, who was clearly in shock by all of it. On the contrary, his words actually only hurt her more, because in her eyes this meant that the only thing Stephen wanted was not to be with her anymore, and he was willing to do anything to achieve this. Carol could in no way grasp how she had done something wrong to get Stephen of the point that he would do something like this. What she was sure about, however, was the thought that she was not going to wait another week till court day to find it all out. Carol was determined to come to that court meeting as prepared as possible. Up until now, all of Stephen's friends had told her that they had no idea of Stephen's whereabouts this past week. Now that Carol finally knew what was going on and why her soon-to-be ex had disappeared, she expected that they had not been telling her the whole truth. Carol got her list again with all the phone numbers of Stephen's friends. No time to waste, she thought, so she started calling all the numbers written on this piece of paper. When she finished, Carol realized that she definitely had been getting some mixed answers. Some of the people still said nothing, while others sort of admitted that they were lying. There was one person with a very surprising answer. This person that before had stated to know nothing of the events that had been going on, told Carol that she was probably better off asking some of her own friends for answers. Carol's friends were accused of knowing just as much as Stephen's friends did, and perhaps even more. Carol was stunned by this. The conversation raised a lot of questions. Why would any of her friends know anything about her pending divorce, while she herself only knew for a couple of hours yet? Did Stephen tell someone about the divorce himself? And if so, who could that be? Regardless of any doubts she had, Carol was willing to call every single one of her friends for answers, starting with the one she suspected most. She picked up the phone and started calling Angela. She's one of the friends to whom Stephen is also very close to. They saw each other from time to time, even if Carol wasn't there with them. She was also the friend who canceled the trip last minute. The phone kept ringing, and it seemed like it kept ringing for hours. In the end, no one picked up either. She called again and again, but still got to a dead end. She decided to call one more time. This time, she had more luck. Angela picked up the phone. She sounded concerned and wasn't as enthusiastic as she normally was. Carol asked if there was something wrong. Angela told her she was worried because Carl called that often in such a short time. Carol panicked and explained that she was looking for Stephen. She hadn't seen or spoken to him in a while, and she needs answers from him. Angela told her that she didn't know where he was. She promised to keep an eye out. After Carl hung up, she went through the list of friends to call. She seemed to be nearing the end of the list, and everyone she spoke to had no idea where Stephen might be, until she got Kelly on the phone, who told something unveiling. Kelly told her she didn't know where Stephen was at this moment, but ensured her Angela could tell her more. To make things even stranger, she revealed that Angela was helping Stephen to hide from her. Carol's mouth fell open, and she didn't know what to say for a moment. She'd just had Angela on the phone. She decided to act immediately and to call Angela right back. How could she do this behind her back? Carol demanded an explanation, but of course, she didn't answer anymore. Carol was boiling with anger and didn't know what to do for a while. Carol was bursting with questions. Why would Angela lie to her? Why is she helping Stephen hide from her? How long has this been going on? In all anger, she decided to do something that in hindsight, she probably shouldn't have done. She didn't hesitate for a second and decided to drive to Angela's house. While wiping a few tears, she grabbed her coat and keys and got into her car. The moment she drove into Angela's street, she saw her driving away. She started following her and ended up at a motel. First thing she saw after Angela got out was that she walked straight to a room and knocked on the door. Where she already saw it coming, her suspicions were confirmed. Stephen opened the door. She was very disappointed in both people and decided to come up with a plan. Since the court trial starts in a few days, she tried to follow the couple as much as possible so that she could bring hard evidence against Stephen in court. In this way, she was able to substantiate what she saw and strengthen her position. She discovered that they did everything together. They spent as much time together as they could. From grocery shopping to going to the cinema. Carol realized they had a life together. But why didn't they tell her anything? She soon would find out. The day of the trial has finally arrived. Carl couldn't wait to finally put this hell behind her, and she hoped for a positive outcome. She pulled out her best clothes from her closet and began to mentally prepare. She went through all the arguments again, and all of a sudden, a car honked. It was her lawyer who suddenly showed up at her door. He decided to pick her up so that they could go through everything while driving. Carol got more and more confident on her way to the courthouse. They had a big surprise for Stephen, which he probably wasn't expecting. Carol wasn't nervous at all until she climbed the stairs of the colossal building. It was all very close now. It would also be the first time she'd come face to face with Stephen in a long time. At the entrance, his lawyer was waiting and wished them well. The trial had been going on for hours when it was finally Carol's turn to speak. She looked at all the people in the room and, to her great surprise, saw Angela also sitting in the back of the room. How dare she? She took a big breath and started talking. She told all the ins and outs of her relationship with Stephen from her point of view. After she had said everything, she looked at her lawyer. He nodded approvingly. That's when he got up and said, "Just to add to this, we have additional evidence." Her lawyer handed the folder to Carol, who opened it. There were a number of photos in it, which showed that Stephen and Angela spent a lot of time together. Stephen and his lawyer were flabbergasted. How did they find out? Carol said that she had been told by several friends that Angela knew more, but did not want to tell. She also saw the two walking hand in hand accidentally. From that moment on, She started collecting evidence to show that she didn't do anything wrong. Stephen and his lawyer tried everything to prove Carol was wrong, but the burden of proof was too harsh. With every word they said, they only got into more trouble. It was very clear they were lying. From that moment, the mood turned. Stephen came to his senses and decided to offer his sincere apologies to Carol. She started laughing and replied, "First you lied to me, then to the jury, and now I have to believe you're sorry." Stephen didn't know what to answer. It didn't take long for the judge to rule and find Carol in her favor. She won the trial, and Stephen had to pay for the emotional damage he had done to her. On her way out, she saw Angela trying to run away as fast as possible. In all the adrenaline that was still inside her, she didn't hesitate for a moment and shouted out Angela's name. Angela seemed to freeze. Carol walked toward her, and she asked why she didn't tell her anything in the first place. How could she? They've been good friends for so long. Angela admitted she was too scared to tell her. She thought Carol would have a tantrum or that Stephen would freak out. She said she and Stephen were just growing closer, and she couldn't help it. Carol saw in her eyes that she was telling the truth. Carol went home, and on her way back, a feeling emerged. She hasn't felt this way in ages. She was glad that all the fuss was finally over and was able to start a new life just for herself. She was finally the strong, independent woman she's actually always been, finding bonds through beautiful tales. Thank you for watching.